Donald Trump is running what is clearly the most inept administration in history, and usually they try to cover that up with intimidation, with distraction, or with lies. But the problem for the Trump White House is they're really bad liars. Their lies always come back to bite them, blow up in their face, or even worse, they get caught in them. And that is exactly what we just saw when Donald Trump was caught editing a video to try to prove one of his lies that is putting us all in extreme danger. We're going to get into it, but before we do, we need a little bit of context, and that starts with Adam Schiff explaining how little Congress has been told about Donald Trump's plans to potentially go to war with Iran.
Senator, we know we have a situation here with Israel and Iran. This is a level of actual warfare between those two countries that we haven't gotten to before. What should be happening both in the White House and with the intelligence committees in Congress, and how should Congress be included in discussions about what's happening there?
Well, I think what should happen in the White House is they should be laying out for the president, okay, here are the alternatives. Here's what it would mean if the U.S. goes in and bombs Fordow. This is what the Iranian reaction is likely to be. Here are the risks of escalation. Here are the risks to our troops. If they do attack our troops and any of our troops are killed, we're going to have to respond, and we will be in this then potentially full-flown conflict with Iran. They should lay out the consequences of leaving Fordow intact. They should really set it out for the president and provide intelligence to back it up, not just shoot from the seat of their pants. That's what Donald Trump does. That is, shoot from the seat of his pants. But they should also be involving Congress in this. We had to beg and plead for a briefing. I've raised this a couple times. I'm glad to see that the administration is going to come brief Congress. They should be submitting this question to Congress. They should seek our authorization. If we're going to be taking a step like bombing Iran, that should be something that is only done constitutionally with Congress's approval. So that's what should be happening. In terms of what is happening, who the hell really knows?
Mm-hmm. Now, whether it be that Donald Trump does not want Congress to know what his plans are, which would be illegal, but that is nothing new for Donald Trump, or it is the fact that he has surrounded himself with unqualified people who cannot communicate necessary information to the people who make the decision over whether or not we go to war. It's not through one of Donald Trump's bleats or tweets or skleets or skeets or whatever it is, some crazy thought that runs across his dementing mind. No, Congress has that power. I know Donald Trump and the Republican Party, they're not big fans of the Constitution, but that's still the case. And Congress, according to Senator Adam Schiff, clearly does not know enough about this situation. And that might be Donald Trump's plan, to keep us all in the dark because he doesn't want to say what he's doing. Maybe it's because MAGA is having a civil war about his potential decision, or he just does not understand what is happening enough to let us all know what he thinks, because he clearly doesn't think a lot, especially when what he's trying to articulate runs in contrast to the only actual information we have. And that's important to keep in mind before we get into this clip, by starting with Donald Trump getting completely contradicted by his own director of national intelligence.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003.
How close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having one.
So Donald Trump is presenting information that runs directly counter to what Tulsi Gabbard testified to. So either Tulsi Gabbard was lying under oath or Donald Trump is lying. Now, I know Tulsi Gabbard's a liar, but Donald Trump's pretty pathological with it. And he says, nobody knows what I'm doing. And maybe that's because Donald Trump doesn't seem to know what he's doing. But in the case that he does, he clearly wants to keep his powder dry as it relates to Iran, which is why the White House is trying to hype him up amidst this MAGA civil war, editing clips of Tulsi Gabbard to make Donald Trump's position look a little bit more favorable, but they got caught. And I want to take a look. White House deceptively edits Tulsi Gabbard's testimony to make it look like she was warning Iran was close to nukes. The White House deceptively edited a video of U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard's March testimony on Wednesday to make it look like she was warning that Iran was close to developing nuclear weapons. In the past year, we've seen an erosion of a decades-long taboo in Iran on discussing nuclear weapons in public, likely emboldening nuclear weapon advocates within Iran's decision-making apparatus, said Gabbard in a clip posted by the White House's Rapid Response account. Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest levels and is unprecedented for a state without nuclear weapons. While the clip made it look like Gabbard was warning that Iran was close to developing nuclear weapons, it was edited to exclude a moment from just seconds before, where Gabbard declared that the U.S. intelligence community has assessed that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon and that neither the supreme leader authorized the development of one. And we see that clip deceptively edited and shared by the White House Rapid Response account right here. The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, Tulsi Gabbard testified. Asked about Gabbard's testimony on Tuesday, which seemed to conflict with his suggestion that Iran was close to developing a nuclear weapon, as we saw Trump snap saying, "I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having one." So two things are happening here, and it very clearly shows the split not only within MAGA, but within Donald Trump's own brain. On one side of things, you have Trump trying to hype up his MAGA base about the possibility of conflict with Iran, right? He wants the people who he promised no new wars to get excited about a war. And so he's deceptively editing clips of Tulsi Gabbard, but at the same time, they do in fact have the other actually real clip, because Donald Trump doesn't know what he wants to do. He's been flip-flopping ever since the initial strike by Israel, saying at first that he had nothing to do with it, hours later saying he was closely involved. Donald Trump just wants credit, but he doesn't know what he wants credit for. And there's no cohesive strategy from anyone in his administration because they all look strictly to him. This is another loyalty test, but Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard don't know which side of this argument to be loyal to. So we are all in very deep danger because our president has a broken brain, and everyone around him is waiting for it to spit out a decision, but it is incapable. And that should scare us all, especially when it seems like everyone in this administration has priorities focused on everything but keeping us safe. Pete Hegseth has more troops deployed in LA right now than anywhere else in the world, and Eric Swalwell called that out in a beautiful takedown that I want to check out right here.
And I always tell folks that the check on fascism or an aspiring dictator like Donald Trump is Congress, the free press, independent courts, and the town squares. Congress is gone. The other three are doing it, but military families tell me there's a fifth check, and it's that our military rank and file will not follow an unlawful order. The problem is it's not only going to be given by the president, it looks like the Secretary of Defense is completely cool shooting at protesters. I also just want to say what Senator Slotkin did there today, that's how you do it. You have to keep these guys on their heels every single second they're in front of you in Congress. Otherwise, they will flood the zone, own the narrative, and essentially overwhelm us with disinformation.
Senator Warren took a slightly different tack, really focusing on the judiciary and the role that they are going to play here. Let's play that sound.
If the Supreme Court orders you to remove troops from American cities, will you do so?
As I've said, Senator, I don't believe district courts should determine national security policy, but if the Supreme Court rules on a topic, we will abide by that.
Okay, so I have two questions. One, just sort of interesting that they continually come back to this idea of undermining district courts. We've heard a lot of this, trying to make the argument that district courts are somehow overstepping their authority and creating policy from the bench. Let's put that aside for a second. Do you believe Pete Hegseth when he says, yes, we will listen to the Supreme Court, or do you think he is making a calculation that this conservative Supreme Court is going to rule in their favor?
Well, they've been losing to the Supreme Court. And so I'm not entirely confident they're going to rule in his favor. But no, I don't trust Pete Hegseth at all on this. And I don't trust Donald Trump at all. Who I trust is you as a journalist, that you're going to fiercely cover this. I trust that the courts are going to continue to bring their independence to this. And I trust that the town squares, if they don't follow this, will look like No King's Day 10-100X, if that's the case. And frankly, that's what is checking Donald Trump. His weakness, his kryptonite, is that he really, really wants to be liked. And so the Trump always caves meme, it's true, and he caves because he wants to be liked. And so if Americans don't cave and we show up when he does something like this, disobey a Supreme Court order, I promise he will back down. That's just who he is.
Congressman, that's an interesting point because it plays itself out as we saw today, yesterday rather, in conversations between Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson over our engagement, or this administration's engagement in Iran. I guess I have two questions. First is, anybody have a follow-up for Senator Cruz there in the caucus room to ask him? So exactly what are your plans on Iran, and do you know how many people live in the country? But I think more broadly, what does that say to you, given that you're right now at the heart of all of this? The state of California, your constituents are in the target for what Trump wants to do. So the politics is real in terms of how they're approaching your state. Alyssa Slotkin spoke to that a little bit and saying, you don't see them putting troops on the grounds in Florida and Texas, where you have the largest population of undocumented immigrants in the country, but yet they're not going to those Republican states, those Republican governors, with their humiliating game cosplay. How does this play out politically as a tool to create bigger fractures, as we saw today with Tucker and Ted Cruz, but also as we saw play out between Alyssa Slotkin and the secretary?
So if you are a voter who was promised and voted for Donald Trump because you were told there would be no more wars, or that he would end the wars on day one, and you voted for him, you had a right to believe that he would be your candidate. If that's what motivated you, I understand why you did that, but he has completely betrayed you.
This is a deeply unserious group of people running our country. The Trump White House is not just inept or incapable, but they're just not really that interested, it seems, in actual governing. They never were. These are Fox News personalities, and when you have Fox News personalities doing the work, you get Fox News results, and that's not a lot of substance. So we're going to keep calling it out on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.